Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be unto you and the mercy of Allah and His blessings. And I'm sitting here, okay, trying to get myself centered here uh, and trying to look somewhat presentable. Um, there are times, and this is one of them, when I need to do things, which is, of course, always true. We always need to do things. Uh, and I have problems functioning. And so I just decide, well, I'm just going to do it, right? So you look at the hair, right? I need to cut my hair. I need to, groom myself and everything. And if I wait until that gets done, then other things will not get done. So you're looking at me the way I am. Uh, and so I want to share some things with you. Uh, and I'm not even sure. I haven't even planned. Uh, what I'm going to share with you. Um, One of I have a whole bunch of stuff, uh, and and what I need to do uh, is find the stuff on on the computer online, so I can read things uh, and know what I'm going to share with you before. No, can't find it. I'm looking for this for the list of things. But at any rate, the things that I have a number of playlists. So I'm going to read some of them as they come up on the screen. Um, One of them is called Strategy, and perhaps I could bring that up. Uh, so it's something to discuss. Uh, uh, See, I'm looking down and I can't tell that I'm looking down. Uh, and so I'm just going to read this off of the screen. Okay. So if you see me looking off into the distance, that's me reading something off of the screen. This is a item that I actually the last update is December 2003. So what are we talking? We're talking 21, 22 years ago. Uh, and something that I really need to share with people. I need to have a back and forth, a conversation. And I rarely have that. But I'm going to read it. Um, and as you may know, my name is Lester. But at the top, as the author, I put Lester Allison Nibbs, PhD. I do have a PhD in music from Harvard University. Uh, and so this is on that in that area of expertise. But beyond that, I mean, I didn't learn this stuff at Harvard. And the title is Music, Mobilization, and Strategy. And the subtitle is The Power of Intelligent Listening. There is a war against African American men. Well, let me go back to the very top. I wrote up here with the name of the gracious and compassionate creator of the heavens and the earth. In Arabic, that's Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Uh, there is a war against African American men. African American men are being shot down in the streets by uniformed policemen. African American men are being dragged into the criminal justice system in outrageous numbers. African American men are dying from the effects of stress. African American men are underrepresented in colleges and universities. These difficulties add to the burdens of already overburdened African American women. Pharaoh ruled the children of Israel by killing the men and allowing the women to live. This is a strategy of tyrants. What it means is destroying the spirit of courageous leadership. In that sense, African Americans are being assimilated as a people who are materialistic, conservative, and accommodating. We want a piece of the pie. We do not understand that the people who rule America from the shadows want Americans to be a piece of the pie, want African Americans to be a piece of the pie, which they consume at leisure. It's their pie. I am proposing an overall strategy for the liberation, which I call Son of Mary. Boy, I haven't worked on that in a long time. Son of Mary, and which I discuss elsewhere. These web pages propose a secondary strategy, which I call music, mobilization, and strategy. For our liberation, we must have strategies within strategies. Music, mobilization, and strategy is about the strategic benefits of listening to symphonic music. The Europeans, so-called white people, have convinced the world that Africans have little or nothing to do with what they call classical music. By classical, they refer to the Greeks and the Romans, claiming them as ancestors and as the originators of their civilization. In fact, today's Europeans are descendants of Germans and Slavs, not of Greeks and Romans, and they are heirs to civilization which came to them from Africans, ancient, medieval, and modern. The ancient Africans, called Egyptians by the Greeks, were the progenitors of Greco-Roman civilization. The medieval Africans in Spain and other parts of Europe, called Moors, were the progenitors of the European rise into modern civilization. And modern Africans caught up in the transatlantic slave traffic have been, since the 16th century, a powerful influence on the development of symphonic music. Although these facts may cause African Americans to feel better about their place in the world, they have little to do with the benefits of listening to symphonic music. Whatever the Europeans intended the symphonic repertoire for, I am convinced that the Creator has made it an encyclopedic compendium of strategies. When African American men actively listen to this music, strategic thinking will become second nature and automatic. This is what we need. Cultural nationalism will lead to African Americans as a museum display. Piece of the pie accommodationism will lead to the extinction of African Americans as a people. Violent confrontation will lead to our violent extermination. We must think strategically to be free. So that's the first section. And uh, I'm not sure. I may. How many minutes has that been? 8 minutes. Okay, you'll have to wait for the next segment, and I'll put that up in strategy. Okay. Um, so strategy is one of the uh, 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 playlists. Okay. Another playlist is the Chaconne, from Afro-Cuban roots to 20th century European and American music. And the Chaconne, ah, I should have turned on this keyboard here. Uh, and pianos have a tendency to, what do you call it, go into a funk, uh, to sulk if you don't play them. I thought this was just true of acoustic pianos. Uh, but this is a digital piano, and it does the same thing. I have notes. You hear that? It didn't play the first time I hit it. I don't know if you can hear those notes, but anyway, um, uh, this piano, I don't practice enough, so it sulks on me, and some of the notes stop playing, and others play. See that? It just suddenly it was loud. I didn't hit it any harder, but that note is just acting crazy. Uh, but at any rate, the chaconne, one of the basic there are three basic aspects of the chaconne. One is the rhythmic aspect, which you may notice in oh, can we think of some kind of music? But you know, dum ba dum bum ba dum bum bum. Uh, you'll hear that in all there are variations of it. You know, there's bum. That's almost the same, right? Um, but you know, and then there's the form that the chaconne took in European classical music, just a 1 2 3, 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Quite often just starting on the two, you know, in a three-beat rhythm. So Bach wrote a chaconne for violin, and then Brahms arranged it for the left hand of the piano, and so it goes 1 2 3. Boom, boom, bum, bum, bum. Okay, I mean that's actually a variant of that earlier rhythm. You can hear the connection maybe if you're familiar. There was a popular dance 100 years ago called the Charleston, and people would just chant Charleston, Charleston, Charleston. And that's the first part of that bum 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 Charleston, Charleston, but and so on and so forth. But there's a whole I could give a whole lecture just on the rhythm of the chaconne. And then there's the melodic aspect of the chaconne, which normally occurs in the bass. Okay, so we have that's the basic idea. And sometimes it takes a chromatic form. Okay, that's you know, and then some of the European symphonic composers, instead of having it go down, they had it go up. So the fourth movement of Brahms's Fourth Symphony is actually called a chaconne. But most of the time, the chaconne in European symphonic music, they don't even call it that. It's all over the place, right? Um, but the fourth movement, it goes up instead of going down. So if you listen to the fourth movement of Brahms's Fourth Symphony, you'll hear the chaconne melodic line going up. Okay, and then the third aspect is the harmonic aspect of the chaconne, and that's I call it the Moorish cadence, right? I don't know why it's just not sounding right on this piano. Okay, maybe that's it. So it goes. Okay, that's the whole harmonic thing of the chaconne, which becomes fundamental to European symphonic music. I mean, whole passages and you know entire movements, you know, based on variations of that harmonic aspect of the chaconne. And Beethoven wrote a series of 32 variations on a theme. Um, and I should have prepared it here, but 32 variations on a theme. And the theme is in itself a chaconne. Okay, so the chaconne in Afro-Cuban and from Afro-Cuban roots to 20th century, the chaconne came to Europe by way of what is now Cuba. The captives were brought to Cuba, and then the Europeans who were in Cuba, the Spanish, picked up the chaconne, picked up this musical form from the captives, and brought it back to Europe. Now, the Spanish people, the common people, know that their music is Moorish music. They know that. The scholars will write all kinds of crazy things, but the people know this music is Moorish. I had a Spanish woman from Asturias, way up in the northwestern part of Spain, which was not conquered by the Moors, right? And she said to me that the Spanish people know this, that their music comes from the Moors. Okay, so when you hear Spanish music, that's Moorish, that's from Black Africans. Okay, and then that influence went into Europe, And so Bach wrote chaconnes, and Brahms, that symphony movement. And then you have chaconnes that are not called chaconnes in the music of Mozart and Beethoven and Haydn and I mean, all of these composers. You have the chaconne in their music. The beginning of the first movement of Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony begins with the descending bass pattern. Um, and the bass continues to go down. It's a fundamental aspect of so much symphonic music. But at any rate, I have another presentation which I call the cadential structure in symphonic music. That's for people who have studied music theory. If you studied music, you know music theory. You know how this is the tonic chord, this is the dominant chord, and the cadential structure is basically that. Well, let me change it to the major mode. There are two modes in symphonic European symphonic music. And the basic idea of the cadential structure is, which is called 1 1 4 5 1, and all of European symphonic music from before Bach to after Brahms, but not the 20th century composers for the most part, but from before Bach to the beginning of the 20th century, all European symphonic music is based on that 1 4 5 1. Okay, wow, I have two playlists with the same name. That's a mistake. I need to go back and deal with that. Word to Word, a comparative study of the Bible and the Quran. Um, hopefully I will remember to put the link. Okay, word to word. I wrote a thing called 12 differences between the Bible and the Quran. Okay, Ramadan Quran, that is already done. You can go on YouTube and look up Ramadan Quran. There are 40 videos of me reciting the Quran. It's customary, and I put that in quotes, customary, uh, because what Muslims don't understand, and 29 years after the passing of Prophet Muhammad, the Muslims went off the track. They came under leadership that was not following Muhammad. They were not following him. They even tried to exterminate his family. Um, and so Muslims today don't understand that we become Muslims by reading the Arabic Quran. That's how Muslims came to be Muslims, how we became Muslims. And it is customary for us to read the entire Quran, recite the entire Quran, which is in Arabic and cannot be translated from beginning to end. The entire Quran, a little bit every day, until in the course of 29 or 30 days, we've recited the entire Quran. I did that this year. Praise be to Allah. I think it took me about 24, 25 days. I wasn't trying to rush, but the Quran is symphonic in structure, okay? And that's my next playlist. It's symphonic in structure, and I wanted to respect the symphonic structure of the Quran. I didn't want to break it up. There are people who cut it into 30 pieces, and they'll, I mean, this doesn't make any sense in Arabic. In English, you can read. I don't know what they do because I stopped reading the English. But the 30th, somebody cuts a section and it's in the middle of a sentence. It's in the middle of a sentence. I'm saying, how can people do this? They just stop. Oh, okay, I'll read the rest tomorrow. No, 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 no. It doesn't work that way. Okay. So, and then so I want to read an entire surah, but the second surah of the Quran will take an hour and a half to recite. And so that's too much. I mean, I've rarely done it in one sitting. But mashallah, I'll split that up at some reasonable at a proper place. But most of the other surahs, I managed to recite all of them. A surah is what they say is a chapter. It's not a chapter. If you read the Bible, you see what a chapter is. You know, you have a continuous narrative, like, say, the story of Joseph and his brothers. And somewhere in that narrative, they break it up into a chapter. And then you continue the narrative in the next chapter. That's not a surah. A surah is not like that. A surah is complete and self-contained. Okay? So, and the surahs range in length from the second surah, which is huge, right? It's huge. And the third and fourth surahs will take you almost an hour. No, it'll take you an hour to recite each one of them, and then you come down to the very. They get shorter and shorter, but not mechanically, not systematically. But they tend to get shorter and shorter until you come down to the very last surahs, which take about 10 seconds. I kid you not, 10 seconds. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم. That is the 100th and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think it's the 109th. I forget the number. I mean, the number is not important, but it's one of the last. There are 114 surahs, and that's one of the very last surahs. That was the entire surah. Okay. So anyway, I recited the Ramadan Quran, and then the symphonic structure of the Quran. Whoo, boy, that is a subject. Okay, books and things. I have all of these books piled up. I have piles falling over, and I really need to be concerned about that. There was a man. Um, uh, this is part of the history of Muslims, and this is just a little teeny tiny bit, but there was a man who had piles of books in his house. And of course, books back in those days meant scrolls, right? Uh, and he had piles of books, and he died because a pile of books fell over on him. So I looked around and I said, well, it sounds romantic, but no. I need to be careful. I have books. I mean, books and books. Um, there's a concept called shura, which is a word in the Quran, and it's translated as mutual consultation and everything. But we have supposedly we have a governmental system we call democracy. I don't believe that works. I don't believe it has ever worked. It's not. It doesn't work. Shura means that people get together and talk to each other. I spend a lot of time with the Indonesian Muslim community in New York City. I shouldn't even need to say Muslim because 90% of the Indonesians are Muslims. Um, and they made it obvious that when they manage their affairs, they talk and talk and talk and talk, and they compromise, right? And then only if it's an emergency do they take it to a vote, right? They work things out by talking. And this is what we need to do if we're going to govern our society properly. We need to talk to each other. We need to get away from this system where if 49% of the people feel morally committed to doing things this way, and 51% of the people feel morally committed to doing things this way, then the 51% get the vote and everybody has to follow them. Well, what if the 49 are right? What if they believe that if you do things that way, you'll destroy the society? But no, democracy means that they have to go along with the 51%. That's madness. Okay. Uh, uh, but at any rate, I have another playlist I call Rant, which I guess in a way is what I'm doing now. But Rant, I'm just going to start and talk, and I'm going to talk about my personal life. People, oh no, you don't do that. I have another playlist called Notebooks. I have a whole bunch of notebooks here that I've been writing in for years, many years. And maybe I'll just open up the notebooks and start reading from them. Imperial Triangle, War and Prophecy in the Age of Muhammad. This is back in the time of Muhammad, um, and it deals with the Imperial Triangle, or the three great empires surrounding Arabia. There's the Iranian Empire, which people call Persia, and that's not correct. It's wrong. It is just wrong. I'm not the only one who says this. The Iranians say it. They told Winston Churchill that their country is Iran, and he said he would call it Persia to his dying day. And, he died, and so what? But it's Iran. It was called Iran by the man who established it 25 or so centuries ago, more than 25, 26 centuries ago. Cyrus, who is called Cyrus the Great. And he was a more magnificent leader than Alexander could ever hope to be. And he established the Iranian Empire. He united the southern part of what is now Iran, which is called Persia. And the language is called Persian, Farsi is what they call it, which means Persian. Yes, that's the southern part of Iran. And things you don't know. Like we talk about a country, we call it Holland. Well, Holland isn't the name of the country. Holland is a part of that country. It's the Netherlands. So similarly, Persia is not the name of that country. Persia is a part of that country. Their history is not the history of Persia. It's the history of Iran, the history of the Iranian Empire. But at any rate, that's one of the three empires. And then there's the Roman Empire, which, a lot of people say, oh, it was the Byzantine Empire by that time. No, well, no. There are historians who will say that, but it's properly still called Rome, and it's referred to as Rome in the Quran, right? It's called Rome. Um, and then there's the country that's called Ethiopia today. I really wish they hadn't done that. I mean, they agreed to call their country Ethiopia. It's called Abyssinia throughout most of its history, and before that, it's called Aksum. I was looking it up on Wikipedia, and I had to look up Aksum. I didn't know that it was called Aksum back in the day. So these are the three great empires surrounding Arabia at the time. And what started me on this project is Allah. You need to understand this about me. I am convinced that the one who created the entire vastness of the cosmos and the higher reality, which is not physical, the higher reality, the real reality, that's the real thing, the higher reality. But the cosmos, the one who created all of this, has been sending us messages for thousands of years, and we've just bungled the whole thing. But the Quran is the only one of those messages that has been preserved in its original form. Okay, um, and there's a surah in the Quran called Rome, and at the beginning of that surah it says Rome has been defeated, but then in a little while Rome will be victorious. And then I didn't, I mean, it's, okay, so I accept that. But, this is how things go. They fight, they lose, they win, they lose, they win. But then I read the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. This is one of those classics. If you love to read books, it's only 7 volumes. There's about 3,500 pages altogether, 7 volumes, about 500 pages each. It's well worth reading. It really is. But at any rate, this was written back in the 18th century. But at any rate, he wrote this when I read about what happened between Rome and Iran back then. Nobody in their right mind would think that Rome was going to escape from this. The Iranian Empire, the Shah and Shah, King of Kings, the emperor of the Iranian Empire, had decided that he was just going to take Rome, right? And Rome was only a remnant of what it had been anyway. And so the capital was where Istanbul is today. Constantinople came to be called. And, he took his army and overran the entire Middle East, all of the Syria, what is now Syria and Jordan and all of that, Palestine, and took Egypt, right? Took Egypt. Egypt was the breadbasket. I mean, they were feeding Rome, okay? It was a breadbasket. And he was 100 miles from the capital, right? And this revelation comes down. Rome is going to be victorious. What? But so anyway, so I read this and I said, my goodness, at the time this revelation came down, nobody, people in the world who knew what was happening, because news traveled, it took time, but it traveled, and people saw what was happening, that Rome was doomed. And so then this thing comes down saying in a few years, not in a long time. You know, most of us don't know this, but it says clearly in the New Testament that Christ Jesus said to his companions that he was coming back and that some of them would still be alive when he came back. That's what he said. It's clear. It is. There's no mistaking it. It's in the gospel. He said he's coming back, and some of them that he was talking to would be alive when he came back. So here it is, 2,000 years later, and people are talking about the second coming. Well, the second coming was supposed to take place 2,000 years ago, right? So this revelation that came down in the Quran didn't say eventually. It said specifically in a few years. The word that's used, I forget the word, but it basically means a period that might be 10 years or something like that. Well, uh, during the life of Prophet Muhammad, within just a few years, um, the whole situation was turned around and Rome was victorious. It happened right then, right there. Um, so, at any rate, Imperial Triangle. So I want to write about that. The social functions of music. Now, there's another huge story. Um, you may not understand this, but this is how we become human beings. Music. So I guess I'll come back from that. Come back to that. Tales from the Crypt, a memoir of my life in and beyond Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam. That's a memoir. I could read it to you, but I've probably been talking. Have I been talking for a half an hour? Oh man! Oh man! Oh man! Okay, let me just go through this quickly. The African and African American roots of European classical music. This goes back to the pyramid builders. I hate calling them Egypt, the pyramid builders. And all the way through the Middle Ages and into modern times, the African and African American roots of European classical music. So these are the various things that I want to talk about. And oh my goodness, I know I've been talking for half an hour, but I want to share something with you, um, which, I feel like a deer in the headlights because I'm 3 months behind in my rent, right? So I'm going to put stuff in the comments where, you can send me some money if you have a little change to send me. Um, I made a calendar a couple of years back. See this thing up here? This is a number. Uh, the Arabic numbers, we call them Arabic numbers. They're not Arabic. They came from India. I mean, the man, Al Khwarizmi, who introduced the number system into the Arabic language, he was actually an Iranian. Now, Iranian, their language is not related to Arabic. They use the Arabic letters, the Arabic writing system. Um, but their language is an Indo-European language, as is in English. Okay, the language of Iran, Farsi, um, is but it's not related to Arabic. But Al Khwarizmi, from which we get the word um, algorithm, Al Khwarizmi was an Iranian who lived in Central Asia, and Arabic was the language of civilization. And I forget exactly what century he lived. But uh, at least 12 centuries ago, or more, 12, 14 centuries ago. At that time, all the way from what is now Senegal to Central Asia, India and Central Asia and beyond, learned people, scholars, wrote in Arabic so that they can, just like in Western Europe, people like, Copernicus, he was Polish. And the book that he wrote proposing the idea that the earth is in orbit around the sun, he wrote that in Latin. He was Polish. He wrote it in Latin. What got Galileo in trouble is he wrote in Italian. so that the average person could understand what he was saying, you know. And he's saying, "Oh, the earth is in orbit around the sun and whatnot." And the people say, "What?" The people of the church. So they dragged him before the Inquisition and threatened him with torture and execution. But Copernicus wrote his book in Latin, and the Church of Rome put it on the shelf and said, "Well, that's nice." And Copernicus died. Galileo was born after Copernicus had died. But at any rate, Al-Khwarizmi wrote in Arabic a book translating the work of Brahmagupta. Brahmagupta, I believe I have his name right, because that sounds like two Indian, Brahma and Gupta. But I think that's the name. Brahmagupta invented this number system: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 0. Well, 0, 1, 2, 3. He invented it in India, right? And Al-Khwarizmi translated his work into Arabic and called it the Indian number system. Okay, so anyway, we use the shapes that we use. We're using the same system, but the shapes that we use are not the same as the shapes that Arabs use today. Okay, so this is and be, to let you know that it comes from Arabic. It goes from right to left, right? That's the numbers go up, they go from right to left. In English, we write from left to right, but in English, but the numbers go from right to left. And so we have, I'm looking at myself on the screen, and it's backwards, So I'm seeing things backwards on the screen, and even though it's the right way, actually, it's the way other people see me, but I'm seeing myself backwards. Um, but it's one. The one is written the same, right? And the two numbers in the middle are 4, 1, 4, 4, 5. So that's last year in the Hijri calendar. The Hijra was a migration of Muhammad and his followers from persecution in Mecca. They migrated to the city that is now known as Medina. Um, and so this happened 1,446 years ago. And so I made a calendar which Muslims can use. We use it every year when Ramadan comes around. It's the ninth month of this calendar. Um, and I tried to sell it to Muslims. And I'm a terrible salesperson anyway, but this was ridiculous. You'd think Muslims would gobble this up, wow, this is our calendar. So I'm just saying that I've updated it online. It's on the computer updated, um, and I'm going to update it, Allah willing, for next year, 1447, and just keep updating it. And whatever, anybody who wants to get it, it costs a lot of money, it'd be $40 or something like that, for each calendar, because I can only have one at a time printed up, right? If I had 100 printed up, I could bring the price down to less than half that. But I don't have support, right? Not even my landlord, who is the leader of a local Muslim community who knows about this calendar, could have said to his people, "Hey, buy this calendar," but he has never done that to my knowledge. And he needs his rent money. Well, if 100 people bought this calendar, that would be a month's rent, at least for me. Over the course of having it printed. But I've never explained that to him. I don't understand. Why do I have to explain that to him? Muhammad, they say peace be upon him, but that's not a rendition. But at any rate, Muhammad said that when you see your brother doing something good, help him. But African Americans, even African American Muslims, have a problem, because when we think badly of people, when we see them doing something good, we think that what we think badly of them is a reason to not support the good that they're doing. And if people behave that way, we would have nothing. I'm talking about people all over the world. We would have nothing. Like Isaac Newton never married. I don't know what he did. He lived a long time, but he never married. But if he didn't have people supporting his work, we wouldn't have satellites, cell phones, color screens. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, And then Tesla, not only did he never marry, I mean, he never had sex with anybody. He kept a pigeon that he paid thousands of dollars for health care. The pigeon had a broken wing. He nursed it back to health. And he told people that he loved that pigeon as much as any man loves his wife. That's Tesla, Nikola Tesla. And whenever you walk into a room and flick a switch and the lights come on, the alternating current uh, connecting the electricity all across the continent. That's because of him. Now, he was a weird man, but people supported the good things that he was trying to do. So that's how this works. That's how this works. You want to be successful as a community, support the good things that people are trying to do. So I'm trying to do good things. I have terrible things in my life. Woo! Uh, and I'm actually going to talk about them. Not today, but I'm going to talk about them because people need to hear these things. You do. You need to hear them. Not to know about me. It's not about me. It's about you live in a society with people. You haven't live in a society with people who go berserk and just start killing people at random. I know them personally. So if you want to be safe when you go to the shopping mall, please listen to me because I will tell you things that will help save your life, your physical life. Okay? So anyway, um, I've talked too long, but I wanted this to be an overview, and I think I covered all of the different uh, 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 subjects um, that I'm going to talk about in the coming days, hopefully. Uh, and so, inshallah, right? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness there's nobody and nothing to be served, to be adored except Allah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger and the last prophet of Allah. And so, anyway, hopefully, I'll get to do these things. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.